Welcome back. This is Victoria. This is the second half of Women's Issues, Women's Voices, and I am talking with several of the women from Kindred Collective, which is something that I am a part of. In the first half, if you missed it, we talked about just the general history and how Kindred came about and the changes that have happened over the last few years and definitely over these last few months. And just to remind you, if you are just tuning in and you want to hear that first half, it will be available on KOPN.org for, I think it's the next 2 weeks as an archive show. You can also reach out to me at WIWV@KOPN.org. That's our email. If you have any questions about anything that has come up in this show, and I can connect to you. So Megan, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about ecotherapy for people, the folks who might be listening who have no idea what that means. Can you break it down?
Absolutely. So ecotherapy is a form of therapy that it works just like traditional therapy and involves a lot of the same components of traditional forms of therapy and a lot of the same tools, but it also works with nature and is really founded on a couple of very basic ideas. Well, one is very basic, and that is that spending time in the natural world is good for you. No matter who you are, human being, puppy, doesn't matter. Spending time in the natural world is good for you. But also the other idea that's really at the foundation of it also works with what's called sort of a phenomenology, which is a branch of philosophy. Like my background is in philosophy before it was in counseling. And that in phenomenology, there's this idea that the world around us also acts upon us. And this really relates to spending time in nature is good for you. It's the idea that the natural world, also being alive, has its own subjectivity. And that in ecotherapy, it's also a very sort of mindful, meditative set of practices, because a large part of what I do is I work mostly with trauma, and a lot of trauma, people might know, has to do with kind of helping people to feel safe again in their bodies and helping people to notice the way that their bodies are responding to things. And so when they're feeling afraid, or when they're feeling anger, or even when they're feeling joy, when they're feeling anything, it's sort of an exploration of embodied awareness. And nature tends to be a really safe place to play with embodied awareness most of the time. If there's like a mountain lion or something, it's probably not the safest time, but usually it's very safe. And you can sort of work with the ways in which that natural world impacts us. And so I think I was saying to some folks the other day, as an example, that when I look at the blue sky, right, and I could also, from a phenomenological standpoint, I could say when the blue sky calls my attention, there's a way in which my body responds to that. And I notice that my body responds to that differently than when I look at the moon.
Yes.
Or than when I look at the ocean, or when I am seeing a sunrise. That there's all of these incredible fluctuations that I would call feelings, right? There's sensations, there's a physicality, but that's also in my mind what feelings really are. They're not cognitive experiences as much as they're embodied experiences. And so it becomes a great way to play safely with embodied experience and help people at the same time ground. So to be in a safe space where they can be aware of their body. In a nutshell.
So before I forget, because this is one of the things I forget, if someone is like listening to you and saying, oh my goodness, I want to find out more about this woman's work, how do they find out about you? I mean, I know you're on the Kindred website. Yes, no, yes.
I think I still owe them a bio.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
But you can get a hold of me through Kindred if you call the phone number. But I have a website, and it's MeghanKeelerLPC.com.
Okay, and Megan, can you spell that for
and that's
folks?
MEGHANKEELER. I think I just did. Did you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
So I'll do it again. MEGHANKEELERLPC.com.
Yeah. So as we said in the first half, you started at Kindred in early March. You'd already been working as a counselor, a licensed professional counselor, for about a year or so when you came and joined us at Kindred. It seems like maybe your work hasn't been affected too drastically because you're still working outside, or has it? I mean, how are you negotiating this time of sheltering in place and so physically distancing our socializations?
Right.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
At first, I would say it was a pretty drastic change. I went almost exclusively to telehealth.
Mhm.
And I have some people who, when they had to go home, like leaving campus or things like that, had to go to other states. And so
Mhm.
I would say that and I also have some people who are higher risk, and
Mhm.
don't want to even be in outdoor spaces. So I have a mix of folks that I see telehealth. I was almost exclusively telehealth, and now I'm probably close to 50-50.
Mhm.
And in a way, though, it's been strangely fascinating, but also useful, because at least at the very beginning, when a lot of what my clients were saying was like, what am I going to do with this time? And I was like, you could go outside. Right? So it's like
Oh,
one of the first times, I would sort of joke with them, I'm like, it's one of the first times you can tell me you're not too busy, right? Like
mhm.
there's actually this opportunity. And it's like you can't go anywhere else almost. You can't go into
Right.
places, but you can certainly come out into
Yeah.
this much wider space. And also I very quickly kind of sent a little sort of stress reduction PDF to all of my people when this happened, that had just all kinds of things
Mhm.
to do with self and body, and de-stressing, and free time. And so a lot of that had to do with being outdoors also. And so I found that people began spending more time outside. And in a way, it has made the work of ecotherapy even more prominent, because the folks I'm working with are having more experiences. They're also the people I meet on trails. We no longer have the option of being in an office. And so
Mhm.
there are certain days where they probably would have been like, can we meet in the air conditioning, please? And
Mhm.
instead, now they're like, can we meet someplace where it's shady?
Right.
But it's given us more time on trails. It's given us time to explore more trails. And so there's been a lot more, for a lot of people, a lot more discovery, especially getting to see the season change. There was this extraordinary sort of pause in the spring, where things were wet, but not kind of cold still and not moving. And so there's just all this seasonal flux that got to become a part of the work, and exploring things like stillness, and exploring things like pause, and also just exploring, just people were saying, oh, I haven't seen this much change on the land before, in this
Mhm.
rhythm before. So it's been, in some ways it's been really, really good, in some ways very, very challenging, also for everyone, in some ways really good.
And so I'm looking forward to the full length interview that you and I are going to do about ecotherapy.
Me too.
Okay. Just
I agree.
woo!
You have
So
it on recording.
I have it recorded now. So Molly, how has it been to be the family enrichment coordinator when you're not really like in the space to be coordinating those activities? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, so it has been a little bit of a shift, because in the past we liked to kind of draw people in for family enrichment and
Mm-hmm.
do things within our walls. And so kind of during all of this time, it's been more trying to find ways to empower families to kind of do things, but that's not Pinterest. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I love Pinterest, but my whole boards are pinned and I'm never doing them because I don't have the
Mm-hmm.
right ingredients. So I've been trying to look at family enrichment from a very practical standpoint, and what is something that families would find useful. So one of those is posting ideas about process art. So the product doesn't matter as much as the doing the art. So I often post only my kids' product of doing it, so that there is no template, there is no, this is what perfect lines look like. So recently I did a 4th of July one where we did flags, and they all looked very different. And then along with that, Also kind of empowering families also to think outside of the box. So oftentimes I'll put together ideas that are essential oil based for more of a holistic way to meet emotional needs, and or, you know, simple things like a sunburn or a more natural bug spray, a little boo-boo stick, just ways to empower families to take more ownership in things. And then also different ideas about healthier party food. So again, coming back to our 4th of July post, I did a fun dessert tray of red and blue fruits with white chocolate covered pretzels. Also in this, we have found kind of during shelter in place when it was really hard, you know, kids, I love what you said, Megan, like that was my impulse through all of this is my kids and I spent most of the day outside through all of this. Whether it was cold, we even had a snowy day in this, rain. We really just got outside. And I often thought when the blue sky called me or the cloudy sky called me, I'm not sure what we would do if we couldn't go outside. Like, so with that, I also tried to think of ways to encourage families to have safe, distanced activities to do. So how can you spread kindness? How can you lift others up? Because that will obviously lift ourselves up. So posts about going to see your elders through the window. Kate and I, our families, along with the grands in town, we did Zoom story readings. So we let the grands take over bedtime book reading, which was really great. So thinking of ideas and helping to post ideas, just again, simple, right? Like none of us have the time or energy resource to do these big things, even though people say you have all the time right now. But yeah, just kind of digging in. So easy ideas of ways to do that. And then also as part of family enrichment, we've had some of the interns and several of the practitioners and myself read storybooks, because also again, sometimes just a 10-minute different voice is helpful to kiddos right now. I know my kids get tired of hearing my voice right now. They hear it 24/7. So by just trying to find ways, you know, where are those little ways that we can meet families and encourage them to think outside of the box of what we all
Molly, and let's make it clear to the listeners, they do not have to be a client at Kindred to connect with these things. So how is it that they connect on social media? Where is this kind of?
I'm so glad you pointed that out. We are on both Facebook and Instagram, and you can follow along with us. And everything that I just mentioned is all on our social media page. So you do not have to be a client at all. This is part of, I also do community outreach for Kindred. So this goes along with it. Like we just want to reach the community and really give great options to help you kind of think tank some creative solutions.
Yeah, and this is one of the things.
Knocked over my computer.
Oh, you didn't fall out of frame. I mean, and so folks who would want to find the social media, it's Facebook or Instagram, and I don't understand Instagram, so I don't know. They just look for Kindred Collective, and the icon is orange. Is that, am I right? Okay. And so that's how they would find. Again, if you're trying to find this, folks, and you can't, you can always send me an email at WIWV@KOPN.org, and I will make sure to get you connected. And it's going to just take a few minutes to talk about, I mean, how inspired I have been by being a part of Kindred, because really, so my individual clients, much like Megan, when I first started, I was doing mostly telehealth, but have really taken this opportunity to explore and to be creative and to find all the trails and shelters and spaces where clients who feel safe meeting outdoors, finding ways to incorporate walking, giving my clients articles about like the research done about the value of walking just itself, and then walking in nature. There's the other piece, and then walking in nature and having a counseling session, right? For those clients who come to me as a registered somatic movement therapist, we have started finding places where that I can create a temporary studio floor made with yoga blankets and mats, and finding a nice place where they can move, again working in the shade. But the piece that has really excited me, which is something I never thought that I would do, is like I've created my own YouTube channel, because I've started offering classes and basically offering them a sliding scale for anyone who wants to come and learn how to do some easy movement, to soothe their parasympathetic system, to move. The philosophy that encompasses both of my different approaches is what can I bring to my clients to support them to live their life more fully, whatever that means. And so that's that when I'm working with someone who's experienced trauma, their definition of what a fuller life right at this moment may be different than someone who has come because of grief or because of a divorce, right? It's like each person comes looking for something that is challenging them. And so that I've really taken that to, now I've taken it to YouTube. And it's been fun because I can not only post these little videos to YouTube under my embodiment, Live Life More Fully channel, but then I share them with Kindred, and they get and they get shared with this larger community. Another thing that I do that I actually started before COVID, but I've kept it up, is something called Free Your Mind Friday. And so on Fridays, I select a video that is inspirational music. I've been doing a lot in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, and putting videos out there that it's about moving your bodies, filling your brain with supportive, empowering ideas, and just, what does that say? They say, dance like no one's watching, because this is something that you can tap into right there on Facebook. So yeah. So that's my little piece. So since I'm not interviewing myself, was there anything I didn't say? Because sometimes I don't hear myself. Okay. So yes. Was there anything I missed that was obvious that I should have said?
No.
Okay.
It was very comprehensive.
So I see that you shared, what was it, Molly? So
So our Instagram handle is
okay.
Kindred Collective
Como.
all strung together.
Okay.
Kindred Collective Como. And then on Facebook, you can find us at Kindred Collective.
Okay.
And the Como is just COMO,
Right.
in honor of Columbia, Missouri.
Right. And that's the same as the website, kindredcollectivecomo.com. So if you're wanting to go out and find out more about the collective or any of the practitioners who have their bio up there, it took me months, Megan, to understand.
It's mostly done. I was working on it yesterday, but I started editing and it got bad.
So if you look out there and you know someone's involved with Kindred and they're not on there, just give Erica a call and she will make sure to connect you. So Kate, as we wrap up here, you are our anchor, right? So you said you'd like to talk a little bit about play therapy in the time of COVID, but also you have another aspect of your work, actually supporting interns and young counselors, young play therapists. So what would you like to tell us about how that is right now?
Yeah, sure. So I do still practice. I carry a small caseload of play therapy clients. So I do practice play therapy. Um, and if you're not familiar with play therapy, just in a nutshell, play therapy is a child's way of expressing themselves through play. Similarly to the way an adult would express themselves in talk therapy, but developmentally speaking, a child's primary language is play. And that's how, and so the philosophy among play therapists is that it's our responsibility as the adult to enter into the child's world when we are invited to do so, and allow them the opportunity to use their most comfortable and fluent language, which is play, rather than encouraging them to try to come up to our world and do talk therapy, which is not developmentally appropriate for them. So so we like to say Dr. Gary Landreth is a famous play therapist, and one of his quotes that I love is that play is a child's language and toys are their words. So we're doing therapy in the child's language, and we're using their words, which are toys. So play therapy is obviously very hands-on. We're using toys. We're in the same room together. We're interacting with each other through play. And so it was a bit of a scramble to figure out how to do that with efficacy through the screen. So to still allow children the space, like the sacred space and the ritual, and that they are allowed in the playroom, and following their lead. So we had to do a lot of creative thinking, and not just figuring out logistics, but really keeping an eye on what is best practice for these kiddos. Like, you know, how can we do this in a way that is best practice for them and not just convenient for the adults in their lives, including the therapist and their caretakers. So we've done a lot of really creative things. Some of us we have worked with the child's caretakers to create at-home play kits. So play kits with toys that are similar to the toys that would be used in play therapy sessions, that only come out during their play therapy session, so that they don't become everyday ordinary toys, but they're their play therapy toy kit. Or we have worked with the toys that children have had around them. Some kiddos who are older, we've gone into playful counseling that is more directive, that's not as child-led as you would see in many forms of play therapy in the playroom. But one thing that's been really cool is for our littlest kiddos who really need that child-centered, child-directed play therapy, we have shifted gears and done something called child-parent relationship therapy, where we are now, as the therapist, working with the parent to learn play therapy skills, and the parent play sessions with the kids, which that has been super cool as well.
That's exciting.
Super cool. And then, it's super cool, really good stuff. And so that's been really fun and really empowering for the parents, and really cool for the kiddos. And then, as the last, we've recently had a spike, and so people are being pretty cautious. But in the weeks leading up to that spike that we've had, some of our play therapists have started meeting in person again, using lots and lots of cautions, doing really creative things. So meeting either outdoors with the kiddos, similarly to Megan and Vic, what you guys are doing outdoors with your grown-ups, or using our largest space so that we have more than 6 feet apart, using masks and bringing portable playrooms into our largest space, and cleaning all the toys between each session. So there's been lots of creative things happening with play therapy. I'm really proud of our play therapists for being so flexible and creative, and really thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, somehow my timer stopped. So
Oh.
I know we are like right on the edge here.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
that's one of the pieces though that I've really been excited, because I feel like, you know, the adults that I work with, we have the capacity to meet outside,
Yeah.
right? And to, you know, they drive their own cars, and, you know,
Yeah.
or to meet on telehealth. And
Yeah.
so that studio space is getting used in the way that it needs to be used by the collective just
Oh,
makes me feel so very excited.
it's
So,
so cool. And
yeah,
I'm thinking of several play therapists specifically who are, oh, it's so cool.
yeah,
They're almost putting together their own little kit so they can keep everything really clean,
yeah,
and just spreading out a blanket in that huge space. And then there's
yeah,
all this room and all this circulation.
yeah.
Super, super cool.
Super cool.
Really, really cool stuff. Yeah.
So I know we need to wrap up, and
Yeah.
I thank you all so much. I'm
Yeah.
hoping, I really am hoping that there will be a Women of Kindred Part 2 at some point
Yes.
with some different voices. But thank you all so much. And again, folks, you've been listening to Women's Issues, Women's Voices. You can reach out to me at WIWV@KOPN.org if you have any questions about anything you heard in tonight's show or getting any of the links. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you, Victoria.